left some of us trying to better understand the bigger issues of waste and recycling. So we began educating ourselves, looking at the federal and state laws governing recycling and how other areas were handling the issue, because we did think there were bigger issues. The team that calls itself Waste Not, which is some of us here, is a subcommittee of the Climate Action Now and was born from this period. Shirley Ferricks, Debbie Gibbs, Star Carroll, and Eric Jorgensen and I got inspired after that first meeting, but there's lots of room left for anyone else who would like to join us, for sure. Finding a home in the Climate Action Now group was a perfect fit, since waste is certainly a driver of climate change. We expected to hold another meeting, in-person meeting, to begin talking in more depth about this. However, you know what happened. We haven't had an in-person meeting in over a year. So, what did I lose? Yes, as I said, and we have, today's Zoom is an attempt to bring you what we've learned, and both about the subject and also how to do a webinar. It's our first go, and so please bear with us. Today you'll hear from our team leader, Shirley Ferricks, and Lauren Scott. She's the sustainability manager for Briar Patch, whose principles and practices are outstanding examples of how to handle waste and recycling. Also Daniel Belshi from Circle, who handles their tremendous river cleanup, where they collect all manner of waste and is passionate about recycling. And of course, our own David Garcia here, the solid waste program manager for the county, and Shivati Karki-Pearl, public sector manager from Waste Management, and her team, some of which are also present. We encourage your questions throughout the Zooms. Please put them in the chat to be answered as we go along, or held till the end so that the answers can be shared with other viewers. That could happen. If we can't answer it today, please provide your email in the chat, and so that we can send it later, the answer later. We are recording the Zoom so we can catch anything that we missed today. Further, Nevada Climate Action Now website has a page entitled Waste Not, and that hopes to answer any of your recycling questions. When you take a look at it, you'll be amazed at how much they've got there, and it's all very current and so on. And there's also a Facebook page, links in the chat, and the link for Nevada Climate Action Now is also will be in the chat. This recording also will be on Nevada County Media YouTube channel next week, which you will just go to by typing in Nevada County Media YouTube channel. So at last, I want to introduce our Waste Not team leader, Shirley Ferricks, who will guide us through our findings in several areas: the crisis history, what is CalRecycle's role, what is our part, and how do we navigate it all, and more. So here you are, Shirley.
To the history and the background of what is now being called a recycling crisis by the state of California, for sure, and the world. You know, I'm sure that most of you might remember when we first started hearing about recycling. I know I worked on the first big push to educate people to recycle in the late 1980s in Marin. So here I am working on it again. 40 years later, you know, we've had such a wonderful, prosperous economy, and you know, we've become a throwaway society, and that's led to a lot of accumulation of waste. But, you know, there for a long time, we could just ship it out. We could ship it out of the country, out of sight, out of mind. So why bother? Well, who cares? Well, it became a very noticeable crisis in 2019 when China said, no more, your goods are too contaminated, we don't want them. Well, that precipitated the Basel Treaty, which now, as of last January, it says that you may not send your goods out to any other country, and that country, even if you do send it out, you may not keep. Wait a sec, I've got a small glitch in my situation here. Star is still the speaker, and I'm trying to see what I'm doing. Okay, anyway, so anyway, the Basel Treaty said you cannot send it to any other country, and no other country needs to accept it. So that backed up the sewers, and here we are with a problem with a lot of trash that we can't get rid of, particularly plastics. I'm sure you've all seen the pictures of the oceans and Southeast Asia, where all the rivers are full of plastic and so on and so forth. But it's become a big problem, and that's what we need. We need to think through that. So it really starts with us. Things with us rethinking what we're doing in recycling and how we buy. What do we buy? What don't we buy? And we're going to be showing you and talking to that a bit later on. You know, the landfill is still a concern, as it was 40 years ago in Marin. But now the concern is more about the methane gases that are released from what's in the landfill. Plastic also gives it off, food gives it off. A lot of materials that's there, unfortunately, give it off. So we need to reduce that. And there was a statewide mandate to reduce what's been going to landfill to take effect in 2020, to reduce by 75%. Well, we didn't make that target in this county, and most of the other counties didn't make it either. You know, I think we came in around 37 or something like that. So, you know, we need to really work on it ourselves to not not get so much waste out there in the first place. They're trying to divert from landfill with food waste diversion, anything you can recycle diversion. I know David and Shivati can tell us more about that later. But you know, the materials in the landfill contribute to greenhouse gases in a big way. That's one of the big messages here, that anything that goes there is going to help to cause a problem with the heat and the pollutions and all that kind of stuff. And you know, even here, you know, we can see, you know, the fire and the drought situation that's looming. You know, that has something to do anyway with the climate situation. So it was an interesting little statistic that the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency reports that 45% of total U.S. solid waste consists of two waste streams, food and plastic. How about that? That's huge, you know. So we really need to think about it on our trips to the food market. And we're going to talk to Lauren later on from Briar Patch to talk about that. Star's going to put something in the chat about how plastics contribute to climate change. There's a couple of different links there in case you want to learn more about that. These are excellent articles you can look at. So the good news is that the Cal Recycle Commission on Recycling has been formed starting about a year ago. And this Cal Recycle is the statewide organization that looks at all of what's happening in the recycling world in our whole state, everywhere. They formed this commission a year ago to look specifically at recycling and how do we change the system? How do we make it better? Because the system is not working to the benefit of very much. So basically, they're looking at redoing the whole system from cradle of production, you know, the manufacturing, into a recirculation of resources so that it does not go to the landfill grave. It starts with pushing back responsibility to the producers. And there are bills, I think we have at least 2 or 3 bills here in our state. And there's one very important bill at federal level. So if you want to get involved in advocacy on anything, let me know, and I'll tune you up on what we can do for advocacy for these bills, because it pushes back responsibility to the manufacturers so that they reduce the amount of new material in there. They use more recycle. They use more recycled material. That means that there's more of a market. So that's part of what this commission does. And they look at the markets. Where can all this stuff go? Who's going to use it? And so we keep these molecules moving in the air and don't go to landfill. So there are also the commission is looking at new reprocessing plants for this clean material. And they're trying to facilitate the permitting so they can get them faster, because I think we only have maybe 2 in the state or 2 around here, something like that. So we know that there are some glitches in the recycling system, and we're just asking, you know, you have to be patient because they are in the process of working it out. Waste management and the county, you know, we're all in the process of trying to work it out so that it's a much better system, and that will come. They're even going to change the coding, so you don't have to use a magnifying glass to look at all those little triangles. You know, you can now, it'll be red, green, yellow, you know, and you'll be able to see right off the bat what's recyclable, what's not recyclable. So this is, I want to show you this, just a bit. This is what's called the circular economy. What we're starting to do now, where we keep the molecules in flow. And I'm going to just share my screen for a minute, real fast. So you can see that that diagram. I'm assuming you see the diagram. Yep. Okay. So essentially, what this is the lineal way that it's been working. You know, energy, the material input of gas, you know, petroleum, you know, whatever, the production, distribution, us, we're the users here, disposal, and then the waste and emission leakage. This linear, they're trying to change this to become circular, so that, you know, this is us, the longer use intensifying, you know, if we can reuse and recycle and repair and all that, we can really save a lot from going here. Disposal, reuse it, and this is a lot of what happens at the waste management plant, and they're sorting and they're reprocessing. They're reprocessing to put it back over here to remanufacturing. And then all the way back to getting the energy back out of the resources, because we don't really have enough, they're saying now that we have finite resources to be able to make new products. So we have to be able to use the products that we have and recapture all of the good materials that are in there that are already our resources that we need to keep going. Okay, so that's a circular economy thing, I think is a really important thing. And again, there's some things in the chat that you can look at about this whole thing. There's a Ellen MacArthur Foundation is, if you really want to learn about it, that's the definitive source. And there's a link in the chat. So the first thing we can do is when we go to the store to buy something, you know, we can look at the packaging. You know, is there any way I can get around plastic? Is there any way I can do minimal? You know, that's what they're doing. It's not just changing plastic, but minimizing. If you look at our Facebook page, and Star will put that up later, we have a Waste Not, Nevada County Waste Not Facebook page, and Shivati put that up, and starts contributing to that. All kinds of really good things, you know, like True Earth. You know, you can buy laundry liquid instead of buying it in one of these things. You know, it comes in a little package like this big, and they're called laundry leaves. And you just take one of those and you put it in. No more big jugs to get rid of that can't be recycled. Okay, so that's a really good thing to know. Reuse, refill. You know, and we have the Gaia store. I don't know if you know the Gaia store. It's over by SPD, across from the theater there. The little what's that? Whatever that little theater is. You know, it's right in that little shopping center, next to the Minor Mo's. Next to Minor Mo's. Okay, so we're going to refill, and you can take your things in there and refill clothing, cleaning products, hair products. You know, all that kind of stuff. So if you look at this, I'm going to show you, this is a really cute clip. I just have to show you that because this is what's coming in our world. This is a pretty interesting little thing. So I'm going to show this, and I have to go back and share. Okay. Okay. All right, so watch this. You got the whole world in your hands. You got the whole world in your hands. You got the whole world in your hands. They got the fracking and the cracking in your hands. They got the shunting and the dumping. In our lands, they got the itty bitty pieces that fun? Okay, so we're gonna stop this here. No, don't do anything more. Oh, okay, here we go. So that really, that's Greenpeace that did that and it's kind of shows the picture. The oil and gas companies are, they're saying, well, okay, we're gonna do less extracting out of the ground, but in the middle region of the middle Atlantic region and all that, what used to be coal, they're proposing to build 500 new plastic plants. And if you have ever seen what happens around a plastic plant, the cancer, the pollution, I mean, it's really horrible. But anyway, so just to know. Well, let's start talking about the buy at the food market. That's where one of our choices comes in, and we're fortunate to have Lauren Scott, who is the Briar Patch Sustainability Manager, with us today. Briar Patch is leading the way. It's sustainability, regeneration. It's looking at lowering packaging. It's just amazing what Lauren has been able to do in the short time that she's been here. So now I just need to unmute Lauren, and she can carry on here. 1 second. Okay, Lauren, I'm asking you to unmute if you will.
There we go. Hi, everyone.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, and do I have the ability to screen share too?
I will make you a co-host.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Give you a couple of visuals to look at. Oh,
wait a minute. I lost you in the lineup here. Okay, see if you can share it now. Should be able to.
all right. There we go.
Okay.
Go ahead and share that there. So I'm excited to talk to you all briefly about 2 of our 5 sustainability goals related to waste and recycling. And those 2 goals are increasing our waste diversion and reducing our in-house plastic packaging. So our goal for 2025 is to divert 80% of our waste from the landfill. And to achieve the zero waste certification, it's around 90%. So we're not quite there yet. Step 1 in achieving this and setting this goal is really to understand how much waste we generate and where our waste is coming from. So at Briar Patch, we track all of our material streams. We track all of our trash, mixed recycling, cardboard, waxed cardboard, e-waste, metal recycling, pallet wrap, gloves, and food waste. And so our 2020 diversion rate was 63%. So 63% of all of our material stream was diverted from the landfill.
Wow. Great.
And I'm going to share with you our strategy for getting to 80% diversion rate. So this is a framework that you can use at home to help reduce your waste. And so let's just give you this one. And this is actually a screenshot from our brand new staff training video on sustainability. So we're really trying to get all of our staff on board with the zero waste hierarchy. And this is the framework that we use. Like, I don't even want to talk about recycling till we get close to the bottom. So step 1, know what you're working with, understand what you're throwing away, look in your trash can. It's hard to reduce waste if you don't know what you're throwing away. And if you want to have the greatest impact, you want to know what is the greatest, like what's filling up your trash can. So start asking questions. What is this material's purpose? What's its environmental impact? Why are we throwing it away? Can we avoid throwing it away? Did we need it in the first place? Is there an alternative outlet available for this material? Can it be diverted from the trash through composting or mixed recycling? Or is there a single stream recycling program for this material, like programs through TerraCycle? A quick plug, TerraCycle usually puts a lot of their zero waste boxes on sale on Earth Day. So tomorrow they're going to do a flash sale. So if you're interested in participating in a single stream recycling program, I'd hop on their website tomorrow. I'll be hopping on their website tomorrow on behalf of Briar Patch and purchasing more of their zero waste pallets for our single use gloves. And then the 4th step, if we can't throw it away and we can't find a way to recycle it, can we replace it with another item that is recyclable? And what are the environmental impacts of that other material? So basically, this is a complex issue. There's a lot of questions involved in every decision we make about our material management. So the process of looking at what we throw away and asking these questions is how we developed our single stream recycling programs. So we have a single stream recycling program for clear plastic pallet wrap, for waxed cardboard, and for single-use gloves. We identified these items as contributing significantly to our waste stream, and we started to research any possible alternatives to throwing them in the trash. So the truth is that there are significant costs involved with recycling hard to recycle materials. And that is why Waste Management does not want us to throw these items into mixed recycling. And we pay a lot of money to send our wax cardboard bales to the Envirolog facility in Georgia. And we try to do it more sustainably. So we put them on rail cars. There's so much waxed cardboard used in agriculture. For how much of it is used, there's really no great way to recycle it. And for our single-use gloves, nitrile gloves, vinyl gloves, we pay TerraCycle a lot of money to recycle those as well. So it really starts with a deep commitment to wanting to divert these materials and a personal responsibility to it. Our clear plastic wrap gets backhauled through our distributor, UNFI. So I want to talk about some of the challenges to recycling, cost and access. Nearly anything can be recycled for a cost. And there are unique and creative recycling programs all across the country that Briar Patch has explored participating in. And often our somewhat rural location and our quantity of material, which is a single store, is a barrier to participating in these programs. And so we do make progress where we can. I field a lot of questions about if we can do more, and we really do try. And so a quick note, our absolute most valuable resource for waste diversion are our amazing local farm partners who divert all of our food waste for feeding animals and creating compost. So if you don't already divert your food waste, I would try to find a way to do it. That's one of the best first steps you can do in increasing your diversion rate. Okay, so I'm probably over my time, but I'm sure lots of folks want to hear about our in-house plastic packaging. So our goal to reduce in-house plastic packaging by 40% includes items like bags for the produce department, bulk department, meat and seafood counter, deli, and bakery. So we review every single item, what type of material is it recyclable? Is it biodegradable? How much of it do we use? And are there better alternatives available to us? So we do some pretty deep dives into all the materials we have, and we use that data to help drive the packaging changes that we make. In 2020, we stopped selling 16-ounce single-use Crystal Geyser plastic water bottles, and we installed a free water refill station in our dining room. So I'm going to move on to this next one. You'll still notice larger like gallons of plastic water bottles. And we see that as a necessity, especially, when there's power outages and things like that. And in 2021, our deli department replaced clear plastic film cheese wrap with biodegradable wood-based cellophane wrap. And our produce department is continuously working with farm direct partners to identify the most sustainable produce packaging, including paper-based ready cycle berry containers. Some of the challenges and obstacles to eliminating single-use plastic is, as we're working to identify alternatives to single-use plastic, we're confronted with complex considerations, including food safety regulations, supply chain availability. It may surprise you. There was a paper bag shortage last year around the holidays, and we were told we might not be able to get paper bags. So that's huge, right? There's global shortages in glass jars. I'm sure a lot of you noticed there weren't a lot of ball jars around last year. We also look at the carbon footprint of production, as well as our local disposal options. So we could replace all of our plastic with compostable plastic, but it takes a lot of energy to create compostable bioplastics, and we don't have a way of disposing of them other than sending them to the trash in our area. So we are committed to offering the most environmentally sound packaging available to us and recognize that it is a constantly moving target. So we're constantly reconsidering all of these factors. And let's see. Last thing I wanted to let you know is that we really do aim to offer alternatives to single-use plastic throughout the store. So shoppers have the choice of a waste-free or low-waste shopping experience. That's with reusable bags and containers that can be used in our produce department, our bulk sections, as well as at checkout. We sell and encourage the use of reusable utensils and straws. And when local health code allows, we also encourage shoppers to bring your own cup to the deli for hot and cold beverages. I also want to say, keep an eye out for plastic-free staff picks and a plastic-free shopping guide that's going to be coming this July as part of Plastic Free July.
Oh, Plastic Free July, I love it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry I have to hop off, but please send all of your questions and I'm always available. You're welcome to share both my telephone number and my email address.
Okay, great. Well, why don't you stop your share, and thank you so much. Boy, that's a lot of information. That is wonderful. It's exciting to know what you're doing there. And I'm going to be asking you for those questions, because the questions you ask yourself and your organization are what we can ask ourselves as we come. So I'm looking forward to passing those on. I'll get those questions and we'll put them on our website. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For you and for Briar Patch. Why, terrific. Well, I think you can see that plastic is an issue. In plastic packaging, and I just want to talk a little bit more about plastic, because our Waste Not team has been mounting a campaign around plastic and trying to reduce it, trying to putting out more plastic recovery boxes, so on and so forth. Because if you look at that's our big challenge. You can see, I think I've mentioned the statistics on how much of our waste stream is plastic, and it turns into methane, which goes to the greenhouse gases, which to the climate change, blah, 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 all the things we don't want to happen. There is something that Star's going to put it in the chat, the story of plastics. There's a long movie, which unfortunately, costs too much money for us to be able to show, but they have a new animated short that just came out today. So she's putting that in the chat, and you can look at that to get kind of the short story on the story of plastic. There's the single-use plastics. That's what we're looking at here. We're talking about takeout containers. We're talking about chip bags. We're talking about things that people, open up and throw away, after a few minutes. That's what we're really trying to get rid of here. And single-use plastics, according to one of these sources that I'll be putting in the chat, 40% of all plastics produced are single-use plastics. If we as consumers don't buy them, that backs it up, and they won't produce as much. And in that way, not as much goes to landfill, and so on and so forth. So, really know that what you're doing and what you're buying and what you're doing with what you're buying and what kind of containers does make a huge difference, Also, just to know that the plastic pollution is not just an oceans issue. I think many of you have seen, the pictures of the poor turtles and the fish and all that. As you saw in that wonderful video, it's a climate issue and it's a human health issue. Plastic doesn't go away. There is no away. It does not go away. It decomposes and decomposes until it gets to microplastics. And now they're finding microplastics in our water, and not necessarily here, but in water humans drink, in the fish we eat. It's in some bodies, some of the research now on the health of and what's happening because of microplastics and the toxins they give off. They're chemicals, okay? So anyway, so we really need to reduce this. So for us, the bottom line is we don't have enough processing plants in California, but they're trying to build them, and we have to reduce the volume of plastics that we give to waste management. They want and need to sell what they collect for reprocessing. It's how they afford to pick up our stuff, right? But the important thing, and we'll talk about this a whole lot more later, is we must make our recycled goods clean. And we'll talk about what's clean enough, and what is contamination, because contamination is really the name of the game that's going to make the difference as to whether or not this material that we put in our recycle bins actually gets recycled. Reprocessed is really the better word. Reprocessed into recycled containers so that they don't end up in landfill. Waste Not is working on this, and we're working, with waste management and with the county. So it's a goal of what we're doing and of this forum to educate and inspire you to help us make the difference. Lauren mentioned TerraCycle. This is a very good opportunity, and we're going to put some links in the chat. And yet it does cost some money to do it. But if you care about it, like for me, I'm a single person. I fill up one big one, probably takes me 5 or 6 months to fill up one. So, that's about, I guess not quite $200, but it's, if you look at it per month, it's really not that much if you care about not doing what we've been doing to the landfill and not having microplastics and health issues and so on and so forth. Really not a heck of a lot. And it was good for her to mention that they have this big sale going on tomorrow. Hot dog. That's good. I want to introduce another person that I've had the pleasure of getting to know lately that's doing some really great things around recycling. Daniel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Unmute yourself, if you will. And Daniel Belshi is the Community Engagement Manager from Circle. And he facilitates the capturing a lot of plastic material packaging and a whole bunch of other stuff in the river cleanups and the trails and all that kind of stuff. So I just loved his enthusiasm. And I'm so glad Daniel would come talk to us. Tell us what
you guys. Yeah, thanks for having me here. It was really exciting to find this group. I'm originally an environmental geographer. I've worked about 20 years in environmental cleanups, looking at how trash impacts our planet. My earliest jobs right out of school were mapping pollution on the Missouri and the Mississippi River, literally floating down both banks of the river and mapping out the amounts, the mounds of trash, and actually categorizing every mile of the Missouri River based on how much trash had accumulated in certain parts of the river. And I grew up on the Missouri River, hosting environmental cleanups with a lot of my friends. This was fun that turned into passion, that turned into obsession, that has now turned into a career. And I've worked around the world. I've gotten the opportunity to work globally on environmental projects, protecting beaches and shorelines and oceans and rivers. And it's been huge. And one of the great things in 2017, I came to this area working with Circle as their community engagement manager, kind of overseeing a little bit of the recycling efforts, their volunteers, their events. Some of the big programs that we work on with recycling are the Summer Volunteer River Ambassador Program, where we actually host volunteers down at the river. We also do the river cleanup in September, and then we also focused a little bit on zero waste events. And if you guys haven't heard of Circle, most people have, but it started in 1983. It was in protection of the South Yuba from 6 dams that were being imposed. Through a 20-year fight, they won wild and scenic status on 39 miles of that river, keeping further development. But with the beauty comes many, many visitors. And our rough estimates are around 800,000 people a year are coming to the Yuba River, mainly Bridgeport, Highway 49, Curtin, Edwards, all the way up to Emerald Pools and Washington. 2020, we actually saw a massive influx of first-time visitors, probably somewhere around 90%. The folks we were talking to at the river, they were new visitors. They haven't spent a lot of time outdoors. They didn't know anything about basic visitor ethics, or they didn't really even have plans for doing a sustainable visit to the river. And something that, unfortunately, because of COVID, we weren't able to put our ambassadors out there last year, and the impacts were pretty staggering. To see a lot of the pollution that ended up in the river, on the banks, on the beaches, and it was overwhelming. So one of our big programs that we do have is the River Ambassador Program. And these are volunteers that they hang out at river crossings on the weekends. They're talking to people. They're reminding you to pack in what you pack out. You know, please, please, please recycle. We hand out trash bags. We hand out recycling bags. We talk about no glass, no fire, pick up after your pets. And it's gotten really great feedback from the community. Just having a community presence for new people when they're coming down to the river, asking them, you know, hey, pick up what you guys have, you know, here's some bags if you guys, you know, didn't bring one with you. And even putting out recycling bins. Some of the infrastructure down at the river is minimal. So a lot of what our river ambassadors are doing are trying to sort of band-aid that by providing recycling bins at a lot of the crossings for people to use when we're down there. And then one of the big culminations at the end of the summer, we host the Yuba River Cleanup. And it's usually the third week of September on Coastal Cleanup Day. And we get around 700 and 900 volunteers. We remove anywhere between 6 tons up to about 8 tons of trash and recycling from about 60 miles of river and about 30 to 35 sites. Most of the stuff that we're finding on the river, and in my entire career of working in river cleanups, the most thing that you're going to find are single-use wrappers, the plastic bottles, the food containers. This year with 2020, what we saw was an amazing impact of single-use recreational things, tents, chairs, hats, clothing, that kind of thing was really, we were finding it in large mass amounts. And then again, everybody stopped at a gas station on their way down to the river. You grab a Coke and a bag of chips and you throw everything into a plastic bag and you head down to the river with your friends. And that's where the stuff would end up. So really what our river ambassadors do and what our cleanup is trying to do is really focus on collecting a lot of that stuff before it ends up in the river and before it washes all down once the rains begin. And again, with cleanups, unfortunately, the products that we find a lot of times in the river, if it's very, very soiled and very, very weathered, it's not recyclable. We try to recycle as much as we possibly can during cleanups. That requires a little bit of sorting. On occasion, we can do cleaning if it's not too intensive or too time. Sometimes it's just time issues that we have, but actually cleaning a lot of that stuff before we can send it to the recyclables. But in 9 times out of 10, on a lot of my cleanups that I've done over the years, if it's muddy, if it's sandy, it's not recyclable anymore. And a lot of the larger cleanups where you're pulling out, you know, 8 to 10 tons worth of recycling and garbage in a day in somewhere between 3 to 4 hours, the maneuvers to try and sort a lot of that becomes a challenge. And it's a challenge across all cleanups. Cleanups around the country, a lot of times they're sponsored by Coca-Cola, by Geyser Water, by Budweiser. All those things that you're typically finding, they're usually a lot of the sponsors for those, which is great. But at the same time, you know, what they're donating is Geyser Water for our cleanups. And we have to say thank you.
Plastic bottles, right?
Yes, Geyser water bottles, not even the big ones, like the little teeny tiny, those little wasteful ones I can't stand.
Great, Daniel, I'm so happy to hear any other little info, because I think, you know, Daniel and his bunch, you know, look what they're doing for recycling and, you know, even trying to clean it to make it, you know, really reusable and recyclable. So thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of our big push right now, my career is really focused on changing minds at the river. What our volunteers are doing down there is talking to people one-on-one, doing positive interactions. We're not authority. We're not here to tell you what to do, but we're here to kind of give you ideas to make you think and make you maybe try to choose, you know, the more responsible solutions while you're at the river. But the main thing is, again, it's really teaching people before they get down there, teaching people to choose more sustainable solutions over consumer convenience.
Right.
Is a lot of our big push. And sort of one of the last things we really focus on at Circle is our zero waste events. This is something that we've it's been growing since I got to Circle. And I really like it, but we've kind of done away with any kind of single-use plastic at our events, single-use anything. So we try to use everything is either compostable or it is reusable. So if you ever come to a Circle event and you try and buy a beer or a glass of wine, we're gonna hand you a tin cup, you know. Here's a metal cup to drink out of. It's going to cost you an extra $8, but you can come back and get it refilled for $2, you know? So we try to find ways to make it, again, make it your choice, make it your decision. We try to develop sort of campaigns around you choose to make our planet better. And I think that's where we see a lot more people sort of, once they've stopped to think about it and to think about their impact, they want to choose the more sustainable.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you joined us today. It's exciting to hear what you're doing, and now all of us can do our parts and maybe get some volunteers out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you guys want to be a river ambassador, we're recruiting for this thing.
Okay. Well, let's get down to some details here. I think, those of you who want to put questions in, you're putting questions in the chat, I'm assuming. And the place that we're going to ask you to put your questions in the future is putting them on Facebook. The link to that is being put in the chat, so you can see where that is. And Shivati from Waste Management, she answers some questions and we answer questions, whatever. So let's see now. Let's do this. We want to show you our little list, and we're not going to go into this really deeply, but just to know what we've been doing here at Waste Not is making some details. We've had a lot of people, I'm going to do my little screen share thing here, ask us a lot of interesting questions. And here we go. So this is our effort to, can you see it? Okay. This is our effort to give you, the specifics. A lot of people ask us a lot of specifics. So this is what we did, is we went through and made these different things. Here's our Facebook thing. And so what we did is we made a lot of these things of saying, recyclable or is it trash? So if it's metal, all this is recyclable, all this other stuff, fencing wire, blah, blah, So this is a little bit of extra information to what is already on the waste management site. For instance, a lot of people ask us takeout containers. Well, unfortunately, if they're waxed inside, they can't be. Even though they might say, that's another one of the problems, they might say they're recyclable, but they're not. So office paper, shredded paper, pizza boxes, that's one that people always ask us about. If there's no grease in food, you can recycle it, but if it's soiled, then you have to trash it. So, laminated. Star, why don't you hold up that box? We
a bag of goodies here for y'all. Where's the bag of goodies?
Here's saw this word aseptic. We thought, what in the world is aseptic? Well, it's these laminated things that she's holding up that are kind of waxy, but they're really plastic and paper. And anyway, those unfortunately are not. So the more you can buy in glass and metal and fill and all that, the better off you are there. Plastic containers. People ask me, do we need to remove the labels? No. Water bottles. We have a program called the California Redemption Value. And at the end of this, and when you go to the website, you'll see this, you can get for yourself. You can take some of these back. If they've had a deposit on it, you can take them back and get the deposit money back. So the most important thing about water bottles is you have to empty them out, because if they leak, and they leak on the paper and everything else, that makes the paper not recyclable. So we have to kind of pay attention to these kind of things. And the plastic water bottles, one thing I want to say, because I think this is fascinating, is that plastic water bottles can now be used for road surfacing. Caltrans just did a road in Oroville that was made out of plastic, crumpled up, munched up plastic water bottles mixed with some stuff. I don't know, David knows what it is, but anyway, but they're starting to use that kind of stuff for roads. I think that's great. So you can just see plastic. Oh, this one is, people always ask us about this one. Clamshells, what's that? So,
Barbara, hold up your clamshell.
That's what a clamshell is. And you get a lot of little ones, big ones, some of them are number ones, and they can be done, but others aren't. Let's see, we're just going to run through this really fast. Plastic bags. You'll see on the website, you can see at the end, we have several markets that have recovery boxes, which is really great. I'm just thrilled that you know, all these different people, B&C and Safeway and Save Mart and so on and so forth, do that. You can only do thin and thick, you know, thin film plastic, newspaper sleeves, but you know, shrink wrap because it's very flexible, but you can't put the rigid in there. You can't put rigid. So anyway, let's see. What is contamination? What's clean enough? This is very big because the whole contamination thing, as we said, if it's contaminated, they can't reprocess it. So it's up to our job to say, you know, I'm going to clean it up because then I know my recycled material is going to get recycled. So it's really up to you more than anybody else. Contamination, you know, this is, again, I'm not going to spend any time on this, even though there's a lot of wood here, a lot of information here. You go on our website and you'll see, you know, all the different things about what is contamination. It's also on the waste management site. And this is a big thing. One person's contamination becomes contamination for all the homes on the truck's route. So if you got something in your place and by the time it gets in there, it's going to mess up the whole truck. So we don't want to do that. What's clean enough? You know, I mean, we're not talking spick and span here. We're talking rinse it out, switch it out, get the big pieces out. You know, if you got a greasy sardine can, you know, put a little soap in there, you know, anyway, but you don't need to remove that stuff. So that is our quickie, and everything else you'll see when you go to our website to get all the details. Now, I really want to introduce David Garcia, who's our program manager for solid waste here in Nevada County. And then he will invite the waste management team. So David, please take it away. Ask to unmute. There you go.
Shivati, did you want to share the presentation or do you want me to share it? And either way, one of us is going to have to.
Here it comes.
Ask and you shall receive. First thing I'm going to say is Shirley already hit on a lot of my part of the presentation, so this is going to be review. And also, if you were involved in the presentation that the Sierra Club did a year ago before the pandemic, a lot of this is review for you. But I do think it's important to go over a little bit of, you know, I'm going to be focused a little bit on how we got where we are with recyclables and some of the market issues associated with recyclables. And the other thing that I wanted to point out was, you know, just attending this group and hearing some of the stuff that you guys are talking about is super exciting, because for Shivati and Waste Management and myself, I mean, by the time it gets to us, it's too late, right? We're left to deal with how do we get rid of this? How do we recycle this? It's already it becomes more challenging and a problem. So a lot of the stuff we're hearing about dealing with it on the front end, not creating the waste in the first place, being responsible for the types of decisions that we make on a daily basis. I mean, all of that stuff is going to make a really big impact. Again, by the time it gets to us, it's already a problem. So I'm going to start going through here. Shivati, if you want to go to the first slide. So a couple of things that have changed. Why is recycling getting more difficult? Why are we having more questions about what is and isn't recyclable? There's a few things. In the recycling industry, periodically there are shifts in the types of material that we see. And over the last 20 years, as you can imagine, we've had a pretty big paradigm shift in the industry. And, you know, we're seeing different types of materials. So one of the big things is, I mean, 20 years ago, one of the largest volumes of material we got was newspapers. And as you can imagine, we're not seeing a lot of newspapers these days, but we are seeing a lot of single-use packaging plastics and cardboard from, you know, people ordering stuff online. Another thing is quality. So, you know, material lightweighting and reduced quality material. So it sounds great, right? They're making plastic bottles with half of the plastic that they used to make plastic bottles with. But unfortunately, when they make it, what they're making is a product that is much more difficult to recycle because the quality is less and you have to collect much more of the material just to recycle it. So it creates a challenge for us when we're trying to recycle that material. Sorry, I got to do something with these comments there. there we go. And then finally, Shirley talked about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but we had the commodities market crashed in about 2016. We had seen steadily declining markets due to what I was just talking about, excess material, poor quality, more quantity. And what we saw was basically plastics are, not worth anything anymore. Glass, the market for glass is almost non-existent. Mixed paper is not very marketable. So a lot of the materials that traditionally we would see as a recycling commodity is no longer economically viable. And we'll talk about why here in a minute. And then the other thing is we have some outdated legislation in California. So, bottle bill combined with recycling markets, we lost more than 400 buyback facilities in the state of California since 2016. And it's again indicative of the fact that if you can't pay people to work at your buyback facility and you can't afford to haul the material, if it's not cost effective for those facilities, then you start seeing closures. And that's what we saw in California, 400 closures. Next slide, Shivati. And this is all Shirley right here. I could have her do this slide for you guys, but I'm going to try to hit it real quick. So Shirley mentioned most of our recycled material prior to 2017 all went to foreign markets, and predominantly to China. In 2017, China announced the national sword policy. They didn't want our trash contamination material anymore. And we in the recycling or the solid waste industry, I think, did a disservice for 40 years. We were telling people just put it all in the recycle bin and it'll all disappear and it'll turn into something great, which was, not an accurate message. It was a disingenuous message. A lot of our recycled material was sent to China and other Southeast Asian countries, and it was combined with a lot of contamination and a lot of stuff that wasn't recycled. So again, they would mine the material for stuff that they thought they could use or make money off of, and then the rest of it found its way into the oceans and into other contamination streams. Again, China didn't want that material. They put strict bans, and ultimately they didn't accept it at all. What that did is it shifted the market to other countries in Southeast Asia, and all of them one by one quickly realized that they didn't want our trash either. And again, not just California or the United States, all Western countries were doing the same thing. We were pretty much all sending most of our stuff overseas. Next slide. This got a lot of coverage. I think everybody by now understands what's been happening, particularly with plastics, but with recyclables in general. Local issue, regional issues, national issue, international issue, and it got press and has been getting press because it's a big deal in the industry for everybody. Next slide. So Shirley mentioned this a little bit too. So everyone, particularly in the United States, we're trying to get a handle on what do we do now. We don't have the manufacturing infrastructure that we need to handle all this material. We're behind the 8 ball because we've been decommissioning all of our manufacturing in the United States and sending all of that overseas, like we've been sending our recyclables. So we don't have the infrastructure. So we're kind of scrambling. And you're seeing a lot of legislation at the local, state, and national level for how to deal with this. So locally, the Board of Supervisors in 2019 sent a letter in support of a commission to address the challenges with recycling markets and with some of the other stuff that's going on in the recycling industry. At the state level, and these are not the most up-to-date pieces of legislation. I put them in here just for examples. There's been more since I put this list together. But I mean, there's, pieces of legislation for developing recycling markets. There's pieces of legislation to ban single-use plastics, to ban plastic bags, to deal with the outdated beverage container recycling bill. At the national level, to deal with recycling strategies. And different states are doing different things. They all have different, ideas and pieces of legislation that they're instituting. I would say California generally is ahead of the curve when it comes to stuff like this, but we also have big challenges because we have big population and big area. So The last thing I'll note is that COVID has not helped any of this. Made it more difficult to do a lot of these things. It's put, I would say it's put a halt on some of these efforts to refocus on, and probably rightfully so, to refocus on the global pandemic and the big health concern. So I would say, if anything, COVID has probably, we've lost a year in some of these efforts. And a lot of that's getting reignited and talked about now, but certainly didn't help. And we'll talk about in a minute, it also didn't help our local operations trying to do buyback and other things. COVID has really had an impact. Next slide, Shivati. So this is from the International City County Management Association. So it's not local data, but it's indicative of what's happening everywhere. Just to give you an idea, and I think Lauren mentioned this too, she keyed into it, which is recycling. What makes recycling happen is that there's a market for it. And so what we've seen in collection and local programs and hauling programs across the state and across the country is that, the value of those materials has gone down significantly. The cost to process those materials have gone up, and the cost to deal with contamination has gone up. So it's gotten more expensive and it's gotten less valuable. And at the same time, what we've seen with rates and how people are dealing with their solid waste programs is not much has changed. So usually a franchise agreement has an annual consumer price index built into it, and that's about the only change you see year over year. That has not been keeping up with what's happening in the solid waste industry over the last 5 years. I mean, if you could imagine, we've had, maybe one of the biggest, I would say financial crisis or market crisis to hit the industry probably ever. And we haven't seen a right sizing yet for how to deal with that problem. What's the next slide, Shivati? So what are jurisdictions doing? All kinds of different stuff. Some places are stopping programs altogether. Some places are changing their material lists of what they're accepting and what they aren't accepting. A lot of jurisdictions are just raising rates. You can, again, it's a money thing, right? You can recycle anything, like Lauren said, if you're willing to pay for it. So an example I think I gave at the last Sierra Club meeting was a country like Sweden. They have a fantastic recycling program. They pay a lot of money for that program. And if you went to some states in the United States, they would say California has a fantastic recycling program compared to them, and we pay more than they do. So it's what you're willing to pay for. And so you're seeing all kinds of different reactions to how people are handling it. And this is, again, locally, you see Sacramento, Riverside, a lot of California cities on this list, and then you see other places around the country. Next slide. So in Nevada County, what have we done in 2019? We did a contract amendment with Waste Management to address a couple things. One thing was improvements to the transfer station, but another thing was to deal with a lot of the changes that are happening in the solid waste industry. Clarification on the responsibilities of the recycling sustainability team. That's why Shivati and I are here, to do outreach and educational activities. We've added a lot of language about contamination, which is going to be mandated by the state under SB 1383, which I'll talk about in a minute, but also it's been a very big issue in recycling. We did a lot of work to revise the diversion goals and how we're calculating those goals, and to have language to address market condition issues and other things within those discussions. And then another part of diversion for us is not just what you think about as plastics and recycling, but our diversion also includes green waste, organics waste, and other things. And so, I mean, we've seen 100% increase in the amount of green waste that we've accepted over the last couple of years since 2016 due to all the fires and the increased fire clearing activity. So that's a whole nother challenge that we're working on, but we added some free green waste drop-off days. We've increased the days that the household hazardous waste facilities open. 95+% of the material that goes to household hazardous waste is recycled. Used oil and all those other batteries, all that stuff is recycled. And then the big thing is going to be addressing AB 1826 and SB 1383, which is the state's mandated food waste collection and organics waste collection programs, which is a whole, again, a completely, we could do a whole webinar or a whole town hall just on organics. And I know Shirley and Debbie and others could attest to that. Next slide. A little bit about SB 1383. It mandates that we develop a residential collection program for food waste. Also, we have a subcommittee of the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission. We're working on looking at different options to the community, community-based composting programs, home-based education and outreach so people can do composting programs at home. A lot of different or great ideas for what we can do, but it's going to be a very challenging prospect. How do you deal with food waste? And not just Nevada County, this is the entire state of California. So by CalRecycle's own estimates, we need to build something like 100 to 150 new facilities in the state, which takes about 5 years to permit. To deal with the volume of food waste that we're going to have in the waste stream. So a pretty big challenge. How do you fund that? How do you get that done in time? All things that Shivati and I and others are working on pretty hard to try to figure out some of those questions. Next slide, Shivati.
Are we just about coming to the end, David?
Yeah, and I can skip mine and go right into Shivati's. I apologize if I'm going long.
Well, anything here you want to hit real fast before we go to Shivati then?
I guess the only thing I would leave people with is the transfer station is 30 years old. It's outdated. We exceeded our useful life. We're doing a lot of stopgap things to work on operational efficiencies, but we're also working on a project to fix the transfer station, address for good, address some of the traffic issues and other things we have out there. If you want to get more information about that, go to mynevadacounty.com. solid waste page, or go to the McCourtneyTransferStation.com and you can look up more information about the project.
Okay, good. Wonderful. Well, that was quite thorough. Thank you, David. And let's go on to Shivati to share what she and her team are doing. And I know we're running a little bit over time, so we'll move through that. But if you're as riveted as I am, I hope you'll hang out here for another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll do question and answer for people who want to stay on to do that. So Shivati, are you coming in here?
Yep, I'm here. So I just also wanted to mention that I have my colleagues, Larry Picard, he's the district manager on here, and also Angel Diaz, he's the Sacramento Recovery and Transfer Station Manager. That's where all our recycling goes. So in the interest of time, I might go fast or skip some slides. And any questions, like Shirley said, if you put in the chat, we'll be happy to reply to you through her, if not today. So recycling, just people like to know what can they, recycle and where they can take it. So the most obvious place other than your cans and your home is the McCourtney Road transfer station. A lot of things that don't go into your can, like household hazardous waste, metal, electronics, construction, demolition can be taken over there. And then we also have our CRV center at the McCourtney Road transfer station. Where does our waste go? I put this in because I think somebody asked me to let people know where the waste goes. And there's a lot of curiosity. All our solid waste goes to Lockwood Landfill in Sparks, Nevada. A single stream recycling goes to Sacramento Recovery Transfer Station, who's again manager we have here with us. Yard waste goes to Green Solutions in Lincoln, where it's clean yard waste and it's converted into landscaping materials. Construction demolition goes as alternative daily cover at the Lockwood landfill, and other materials similarly go to various third parties to be processed. Residential recycling, for those who may or may not know, we do offer up to 2 free 35 to 96 gallon bins. So if you're an avid recycler, you can ask for another bin. We just want to make sure there's no trash overflow in those bins. And we want to encourage you to recover as much as you can from your trash and put it in the recycling bins. We do have low cost yard bins available. Your batteries can be put out in clear plastic bags on top of your recycling bin. And we do provide jugs to dispose of your motor oil on recycle pickup day. You have to call in and ask for it, and we'll send you a jug. Community recycling, we participate with many different local organizations, jurisdictions, and entities to provide, here are some examples: free Christmas tree drop-off program, yard waste events, community cleanup days. We do have the CRV Center open, and we do have recycling drop-off available at Loma Rica. And we donate bins to various nonprofits for cleanups that they do, all the good work that they do. We try to support them. Contamination, that's a big question mark for a lot of people. California's goal, based on an EPA study, was to divert 75% of they have as by 2020, they have not hit it. And so that's why there's all new legislation coming in that's asking jurisdictions to enforce recycling and improve contamination now.
And I will clarify, Shivani, if I can, the state goal is 75%. The county goal is 50% per the state.
Right.
Goals that they give to the jurisdictions was 50%.
Right.
They changed that to £1 per day, so it's a little different. But we're not very far off of our actual goal, which was 50% designated by the state.
Yeah, and our 50% goal was for 2028, was it? Anyway, so last year in 2020, Western Nevada County, we had about 87,600 tons of waste, out of which we were able to successfully divert 48%. So actually, that's pretty good. According to a study that was done, they found that average contamination rates are around 20% in California. So, and then cities that have more than 50,000 residents are seeing a high contamination rate between 8 and 46% with an average of 20. Wow. So contamination, what are the three main ways you're actually contaminating your bin? You're throwing in items that are not recyclable, like fabric, rubber, foam, or products like toys that are mixed material items. Or you're throwing in items that are actually hazardous and compromise the safety of the hauling companies, employees, trucks, or equipment at the sorting facility, like all the tanglers, hoses, plastic bags, electric cords, and other pressurized items. Or by throwing in soiled items, like mostly it's food soiled items like pizza boxes or liquids or bottles containing liquids and fluids. A lot of you may have seen this come through in your homes. We often send out newsletters. Really keep it easy. Keep these 5 things in your recycle bin. If you're confused, throw it out. Plastics 1 and 2, those are the harder quality of plastics, food and beverage cans, glass, bottles and jars, paper, flattened cardboard, and clean paperboard, and all of them clean. I know this a group of people is very interested in keeping it extra clean and making sure that you don't put in anything that doesn't belong. However, if you're not sure, if it's plastic, throw it in. We'll sort it out at the sorting facility. Just don't throw in hazardous material and the things that shouldn't be in there. One of our ways of combating contamination is through the smart truck. I'll go through this really fast. These are technology employed through our trucks. They're deployed in all our commercial businesses and in Nevada County residences. And it allows us to get real-time data associated with addresses. We're able to assess the waste. If there's contamination, we're able to reach out to the customer, provide them education on what should or shouldn't have been in there, and be able to make sure that we have a cleaner material, cleaner containers, cleaner community. And we do, if for anybody who's concerned, all customer data is protected. And for providing any lack of misunderstanding at this moment, community stops are exempt. So if you're bringing your bin out where there's 5, 6 other neighbors doing the same thing, we leave that alone for now because it's hard to identify who this bin belongs to. I have a little video here that shows you how the cameras work. Basically, question is, can you spot the contaminated material that's in there? You see it being dumped in, you see pillows and plastics, which they're not recycled. So that's an example of how we determine whether the load is contaminated or not. Resources, I have about 5 pages of resources. We have our website for the county. We have the waste management website. We have these other resources, and I'm going to send all these resources to Shirley. So if you're interested, she'll pass it on to you. And that's all for me. I tried to zip through that.
And I'll note that a lot of those resources are all on the mynevadacounty.com solid waste page. Videos about the transfer station and how it works. We have videos about our recycling facilities, links to articles about the recycling crisis. We have resources for how to recycle right and what's recyclable. All of that's on our page, and links to waste management's page as well.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you all, both of you so much. We had a lot of wonderful information, and then thank you for sending the slides, because I think maybe we can end up putting just some of that on ours to add into what we've got. So it doesn't hurt to have a couple of things in 2 places. Anyway, great. Well, thank you very, very much. And thank you to the other parts of the members of the team who came from Waste Management. There may be some, just Shivati, introduce them quickly, and so we can raise our hand. Angel,
yeah, Angel Diaz is here. If you want to put your hand up, he's sitting in Sacramento right now at the sorting facility where all our recycling goes and gets sorted. So he's a bit of an expert in all things recycling. Yeah, and he's also in charge of finding all the market for the commodities. Well, he and his colleagues, which is not an easy task. And then Larry Picard, he runs all the operations locally. He's a district manager. So
that's great, because I hear a lot of questions about, well, where does it go and who's, so forth, and so where the processing plant is and all that. I'm glad we've clarified that today, to see, so you see the steps, and then at some point Angel gets in there and says, okay, we can recycle this, we can reprocess this, we can whatever. So that's good. And then Larry's here in case you have questions for our local McCourtney Road Station, right, Larry? Yeah.
Well, more so, you can ask me questions about McCourtney Road, or more so about collection and hauling.
Collection and hauling. Okay, good. Barbara, I think Debbie to say a little something. Debbie's going to sneak in here. Debbie's one of our waste management gals. Let's see. I'm going to mute you. And Debbie, unmute. No, you're unmuted. Okay.
I'm unmuted. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with David's great summary on the new challenge on the block, which is going to be organic waste. And he touched on that. This is really a pretty new area. We're accustomed to metal and plastic and so forth for the past 40 years, but food waste and green waste, that really is kind of a new arena. To the county's credit, there's a solid waste commission that meets twice a year, and they agreed that more attention needs to be provided to this area, because it's going to be fast on us needing to do something. So there is an organic subcommittee that meets every month that the county hosts, and they brought in their staff as well as businesses and nonprofits to discuss approaches that we might take in order to really be effective in terms of organic waste. And Waste Not also is very interested in this area. So I just wanted to mention, as a coming attraction, we are planning a fall forum to really delve into some of the options and the avenues that are going to be used in terms of our green waste and our food waste.
So we're going to need to get it out of our trash at some point. So we're going to help you figure out how to do that. As will Waste Management. I know they've got a big program plan too. So we'll work on that one.
Oh, go ahead.
To wind her up, but
I'm here to sort of do a wrap up, but I'm not quite sure if we're really completely wrapped up. There are a couple outstanding questions from Iden Bromfield, and one of it has to do with plastics, this is something, I don't know if they're seeing those questions or not, David and Shivani.
I can see it.
He wants to know where the various plastics are stored and what happens to them. I know that 1 and 2s, the range of 1 to 7 are considered something that is marketable for sure, whereas the other 3 through 7 are a little extra time with us today. But we will pass those on. I don't know the answer.
If you want the last question, we can try to address it.
Yeah.
Because Angel is here, he can talk about what happens to the plastics. But what I do want to mention that Placer County that has the gray bin where they take to what's called a dirty MRF and they sort it all out. Dirty MRFs typically have like a 50 to 75% quality that or ability to recover plastics, whereas cleaner MRFs that are as much as possible non-contaminated recycling sent forth to MRFs are material recovery facilities, a higher percentage of almost 90-95 and higher percentage of recovery. And so, if you ask us, we'll always ask.
So just for clarification though, we in Nevada County have a transfer station. So all the material comes to our facility and then it is directly hauled to a processing facility. So it either goes to a landfill or it goes to the recycling facility in Sacramento, where it is then sorted and stored and transferred and sent to reprocessing facilities. So it looks like the question was, do we have room to sort it and store it? We basically take that material and we send it to a bigger regional facility. So, I mean, and we have a video on mynevadacounty.com solid waste page that shows the actual material goes.
Oh, good.
It's something to behold. It's a multi-million-dollar sorting facility. It's intricate. Angel manages it. It's a fantastic thing. But no, we don't have room to store material here, which is why we transfer everything out.
So I have been to one of the MRFs, and I'm not sure if it's the same one. I think it was in Roseville or Rockland. I don't know if people can hear me or not.
We can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, I'm a doubting Thomas. Sacramento's a big urban area. I just wonder where all these things are stored. I know that people I've talked to in the Bay Area said that they were not able to do certain things at a certain time. So that's all. It's kind of just this big, everyone has great vision and ideas and what's actually happening. Some other man told me things were being tossed on the inside. He said people in the recycling business in the bigger county. This was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think we might have to let that one go. And
yes.
there's always people that and stories going around. So I think we can hear what Shivani and David are telling us. And at the moment, I think, I really believe that they're doing the best they can. And that if there's no market for it, after it's sorted, they have no choice. They have to send it to landfill because they can't sell it. Part of it is that it's not saleable chemical, nobody can do anything with 4s and 5s, let's say. But, again, it's part of our problem is the contamination part. And if we can do that, then they can have a better chance of selling a lot more. And they do sort it as best they can. We know that. So.
Right, I agree, and that I think it does behoove, and one of our the things that Waste Not is trying to do is educate people about contamination in the bins that they have, that Waste Management, or we that we buy from Waste Management. So, but what I really want to do is 6 o'clock, and we had not intended to be quite this late. And we really want to thank you all for coming to our program today, and invite you to get inspired or be inspired to come and help us with this kind of thing. It's very important to our planet to start taking care of this kind of thing. So, and we look forward to a fall meeting. And maybe we were even thinking of some little fireside chats that we might be able to put on in small groups of just for small topics or bigger topics that would take more time. We took on a lot, and of course, so has Waste Management, and the county. So I think I'm going to say good night, unless somebody. I think we've answered or tried to answer most of your questions. We had some tricky ones, but other than that, I hope we did okay. And we do this resource page from Nevada, not Nevada County Climate Change Coalition is really amazing. They've got a lot of it nailed. So I hope you'll take a look at that. And we did have that in the chat in many places so that you can see it. I want to thank you, and certainly thank Waste Management for providing all that information, and Shirley for providing all that information, and our other guests, Daniel and Laura.
And
thank you for having us. And I do want to thank Angel Shirley for answering all your questions that you had sent out.
Okay. That's great. Good. If it's okay with you all, I'm going to say good night, and thanks.
Have a good night.
Thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Good forum, guys.
I'd like to leave us with a closing quote. Recycling is good, but the truth is banning, reducing, and redesigning has way more impact. And I've put up a link for a list of actions we can individually take to reduce plastic waste. So we hope we've inspired you to maybe try one thing to do. Thank you and good night.